Scientists created synthetic embryos without using eggs or sperm. But are these really embryos? Scientists have recently made headlines by creating synthetic human embryos in the lab, raising questions about the ethics and legality of this kind of research. The technology behind these embryos involves cultivating stem cells into a blastocyst-like structure, a process that mimics the early stages of natural human development. However, researchers have stated that these synthetic embryos cannot develop into a baby. Instead, the aim of this research is to gain a better understanding of human development and how it can go wrong, with potential benefits for disease and fertility treatments. The technology is still in its early stages, and many questions remain. Title: Centralian Today, the return of a local newspaper in Central Australia. Today News Group has announced that a new local newspaper, the Centralian Today, will launch in Central Australia in late August. The weekly paper and online news service will cover local news, sports, and community stories. The Centralian Today will fill the gap left by News Corp, which discontinued its newspaper business in the region 3 years ago. Today News Group director Damien Morgan said they believed there was a great need for a newspaper to come back to Central Australia, and he was confident that they could make it a viable proposition moving forward. The weekly newspaper and online subscription will each cost $4 and could create up to 6 local jobs, including 2 to 3 journalists. Title: 3D printing technology revolutionizes the making of artificial eyes. A team of scientists from the Hurston Biofabrication Institute in Australia is leading an evaluation trial to assess how 3D printed eyes compare to handmade ones in terms of look and feel. The institute specializes in 3D scanning, modeling, and printing of medical devices. It is also working on research into the future use of biocompatible materials for implants. The evaluation trial involves 10 patients and aims to prove that 3D printed eyes, which the team produces by scanning and taking high-resolution photographs, are just as good as handmade ones. This technology could revolutionize the making of artificial eyes, making it more efficient and cost-effective. Title: Cotton farms in Queensland's coastal regions. Fields of stark white cotton are popping up in unexpected regions across Queensland. Cotton was traditionally grown inland, but coastal growers are trying their luck with cotton. The Maryborough region in the Wide Bay region of Queensland, known for its pineapple and cane crops, is now showing promising results in cotton farming. Cotton is proving to be versatile and can be grown near saltwater creeks. Michael Murray, the general manager of Cotton Australia, said cotton could grow anywhere in Queensland. Cotton is generally a profitable crop and can be grown anywhere with adequate water and nutrition. The story is suitable. Title: Marvel's Secret Invasion brings intrigue to Earth's leaders and refugees. Marvel's Secret Invasion, a new 6-part espionage thriller on Disney+, explores the covert takeover of Earth's leaders by shape-shifting aliens. However, the show isn't just about intergalactic conflict, but also about refugees and displacement. Director Ali Selim says the show portrays a grey world where things aren't necessarily good or evil, with mistrust and paranoia. Selim drew inspiration from classic American westerns and film noir, while Kingsley Ben-Adir, who plays the series' main antagonist, looked to historical figures like cult leaders for inspiration. The show stars Samuel L. Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, Olivia Colman, Cobie Smulders, and Emilia Clarke. Title: AI-generated evidence can make courtrooms doubt their own eyes. A former president of the Queensland Law Society has issued a warning that jurors may end up doubting the proof of their own eyes due to the potential realism of AI-generated audio and video evidence. The authenticity of deepfake videos and images could become hard to detect, leading to concerns for both prosecution and defence. The Australian federal government recently announced plans to regulate the development and use of artificial intelligence. Computer science lecturer Erica Mealy said AI voice and video replication was now so convincing that federal regulations were needed to ensure consumers knew the difference. Netball legend, the mastermind behind the rebuilding of an Australian sporting powerhouse. After a 4-year rebuild by coach Tanja Obst, the Adelaide Thunderbirds are just 2 wins away from claiming a 5th flag. The 4-time premiership team was in disarray when Obst was appointed in 2019, but she managed to turn them from easy beats to a successful team. Obst knew that recruiting was key and brought in players like defender Shamera Sterling and English attacker Eleanor Cardwell. Now, the Thunderbirds are in the finals, with Obst saying a lack of experience should be no barrier. Hannah Petty, who witnessed dark times in the club, said Obst had been a major catalyst in the Thunderbirds' revival. Family court judges take outback trip in bid to break down fear in Indigenous communities. In an effort to break down barriers and build stronger relationships with remote Aboriginal communities, over 80 judges from the Federal Circuit and Family Court have travelled to the Central Australian desert to spend 3 days listening and learning. The group spent time in Alice Springs and the Aboriginal communities of Chenchayapert, Santa Teresa, and Intaria, Hermannsburg, where they hope to gain a deeper understanding of the challenges faced by regional families. Chief Justice Will Alstergren said the trip had already been deeply impactful, revealing a huge need to make the court even more accessible. Neurodivergent people are often misunderstood. This group created by a 22-year-old is changing lives. Thomas Walters White, a 22-year-old from Bowral in the New South Wales Southern Highlands, has created a social group for young adults with mild autism spectrum disorder (ASD) after struggling to make friends. With encouragement from his mother, Thomas posted the idea on Facebook, and it reached a greater audience when community circles offered their networking skills. Now, every weekend, Thomas and a small group of neurodivergent young adults enjoy a meal and chat, and the group aims to bring people together to live more connected lives. The initiative has boosted confidence and improved mental health for members. Councils invited to join fight for new hospital on Vic New South Wales border. Wodonga City Council has called on 16 regional councils to back its bid for a new hospital on the border of Victoria and New South Wales. Despite the allocation of $558 million last year from both states to redevelop Albury Wodonga Health's Albury site, Wodonga's Mayor Ron Mildren said it's not too late for a new healthcare facility on a single site. An 8-part motion was unanimously passed demanding transparency to determine whether the brownfield site is suitable. Mildren called for neighbouring councils to support the initiative, adding that the community's health had not been prioritised, and political expediency was key. More public housing to be built in Canberra despite Senate stalemate. The Australian Capital Territory (ACT) government has committed to a $300 million plan to build and renew public housing, despite the federal government's $10 billion National Fund for Social and Affordable Housing being blocked in the Senate. Next week's ACT budget includes funding to construct 400 public housing dwellings and renew or replace 1,000 homes over 4 years. The government also plans to create 3 new build-to-rent apartment developments with 180 affordable homes for low-income Canberrans. The investment follows years of declining public housing rates, and increased demand for affordable housing in one of Australia's most expensive cities. Title: Families hit with childcare fee hikes despite promised savings. Hundreds of families in Australia expecting to save money on childcare fees due to increased subsidies will now have to pay more as childcare centres increase their fees. Inflation and staff wage increases have been cited as the reason for the hikes, despite the fact that families were promised savings with the rollout of higher subsidies. The Parenthood, an advocacy group, worries that the increase could be opportunistic and has called for further investigation. Good Start Early Learning, which operates over 660 childcare centres across Australia, has announced a 7.8% increase in fees. The fee spike will impact hundreds of local families. Title: Perth man gets over 20 years in prison for horrendous abuse of stepdaughter. A Perth man who sexually abused his stepdaughter with the help of her mother has been sentenced to more than 2 decades in prison. The man met the girl and her mother online and began sexually abusing the child after she arrived in Australia to live with him and her mother. The WA District Court learned that the mother participated in most of the sex acts and even gave the girl medication to help her with the pain. Prosecutors said the man's crimes came to light when police discovered videos and photos of him and his partner abusing the girl on his electronic devices. Judge Linda Black called the man's crimes disgusting, depraved, violent, sadistic, and cruel. Title: Whistleblower who highlighted Kimberley school truancy in the clear. The Department of Education will not punish whistleblower Brock Burston for leaking attendance data from a remote Western Australian school. Burston, who had been facing disciplinary action for exposing the truancy crisis at Halls Creek District High School, reached an agreement with the department before the Public Service Appeal Board hearing. The events began when he raised concerns about attendance plans for at-risk children at the school in 2020. Following an inquiry last year, Education Minister Sue Ellery apologised after the defective rollout of the plans. The school had a 26% attendance rate in 2022, compared to the state's average of 80.4%. Title: Queensland State students barred from representing schools in equestrian competition. Queensland state school students have been banned from representing their schools in the upcoming Equestrian Queensland's Interschool Queensland State Championships. The Education Department issued an instruction that students could only compete independently. This decision has upset parents, particularly those whose children trained and competed to qualify for the event. Kelly Frampton, a parent, argued that horseriding events are as risky as rugby games and that riders wear appropriate safety gear, including helmets and boots and safety vests. The ban affects students from about 80 state schools in Queensland. Landowners condemn Hobart Council rate hike on vacant blocks. Hobart City Council has implemented a new differential rating strategy with increased rates for vacant residential land. While the council argues that the hike will encourage development of vacant land for housing and other purposes, some landowners are protesting due to the potential cost burden. Bogdan Michorkovsky, who owns a 12-acre property within the city boundary, now has to pay more than double the general council rates for the empty block. Councillor John Kelly, who owns 4 blocks on a hill overlooking the city, also opposes the rate hike. Concerns about land banking and the city's housing shortage prompted the council to implement the new rates. Title: Parents injecting kids with ice to commit crimes, says inquiry. A Tasmanian inquiry has revealed accounts of parents injecting their children as young as 8 with the drug ice to get them to commit crimes. Sarah Charlton, the chief executive of Holyoake Tasmania, shared the shocking information at a Tasmanian Upper House Committee inquiry into adult imprisonment and youth detention. Charlton added that Holyoake currently had a waitlist of 100 prisoners and a 3 to 5 week waitlist for its programs for families affected by drug or alcohol addiction. She called for more investment in young children and education to prevent them from going down a path of drug abuse and crime. Title: Commonwealth challenges landmark native title compensation claim in High Court. The Commonwealth has lodged an appeal in the High Court against a federal court ruling that granted millions of dollars in compensation over a mining lease on the Gove Peninsula. In May, the late Gummidge clan leader Yunupingu won a historic legal battle when the full federal court found that the Commonwealth had acquired land for a mine without the consent of landowners. Yunupingu sought up to $700 million in compensation on behalf of his people, the Gummidge clan, over the acquisition of land in northeast Arnhem Land in 1969. The outcome of this case could have significant implications for compensation claims across Australia. Title: Alleged threats made by Victorian government officials to be investigated by Human Rights Commission. The Victorian Human Rights Commission will launch an investigation into the alleged threats made by government officials to mental health consultant Simon Cattle. Cattle had accused staff at the Department of Health of threatening his future employment if he refused to change a report commissioned by the government. The report was meant to make recommendations about how the Minister for Mental Health could acknowledge the harm caused by the mental health system. The opposition has called for an investigation into Cattle's treatment and the actions taken by senior bureaucrats. The state's Human Rights Commission will investigate the matter. Child Protection Department failed to investigate high-risk matters relating to two families. South Australia's Department for Child Protection has come under fire from the State Ombudsman for failing to investigate more than 90 notifications about two families for over a decade, despite reports of potential violence, substance abuse and neglect. The Ombudsman found the department had acted contrary to child safety laws by failing to keep harm prevention as a paramount consideration, describing the situation as unacceptable. The department inappropriately referred notifications to other state authorities, while requests for intervention were passed back and forth between agencies. The department has informed the Ombudsman's office of several initiatives underway to improve its response to notifications. Title: Victorian MPs to receive pay rise despite public service cuts. Victorian MPs are set to receive a 3.5% pay rise from July 1, following a decision by the Victorian Independent Remuneration Tribunal (VIRT). The base salary for all MPs will increase to nearly $199,000 a year, with Premier Daniel Andrews receiving a pay increase of over $16,000. Despite criticism from Liberal MP Nick McGowan, the VIRT maintains that pay adjustments are decided by the Independent Tribunal, and are based on the financial position of the state and the current and projected economic conditions. This decision follows the Andrews Labor government's 2017 legislation to ensure politicians could no longer set their own salaries and allowances. Title: One Game, 9 Points and No More Chances, How New South Wales Plan to Save the Women's Origin Series. New South Wales must beat Queensland by 9 points or more to win the Women's State of Origin Series. Kylie Hilda's side is down 1-0 in the series, and victory alone won't be enough to claim the shield. Veteran forward Kezzy Apps revealed that winning the game will require clinical play, despite the emotionally charged atmosphere of Origin games. The return of Simaima Taufa, one of the finest middles in the women's game, could tip the scales towards the Sky Blues. The game will take place at Townsville Stadium on June 24. Not under any circumstances, Human Rights Commissioner criticises lengthy stays in hotel detention. Australia's Human Rights Commissioner has criticised the use of hotels for immigration detention and the lengthy stays many detainees are subjected to. Although the number of people in hotel detention has reduced, there are still dozens of people staying for months at a time, with an estimated cost of roughly $470,000 annually per person. The Human Rights Commission recommends detainees only be housed in rooms with access to fresh air, be given greater access to outdoor space, and be granted greater freedom of movement. The report also found that the restrictions placed on detainees have more to do with the hotels themselves than any risk posed by those being held. Title: Federal Government launches real-time reporting of deaths in custody. Indigenous and non-Indigenous deaths in custody will now be reported in real time as part of a federal government initiative to address the high number of fatalities in Australian prisons. There have been more than 540 First Nations deaths in custody over the past 32 years. The Curtin Law School Associate Professor, Hannah McGlade, and Aboriginal community members have welcomed the new initiative, calling it a step towards addressing systemic issues in the criminal justice system. The government aims to end deaths in custody and is investing $99 million in First Nations justice initiatives. Title: Russian air strikes hit Kyiv and other cities as Ukraine reports progress in counteroffensive. Russian air strikes have targeted military and infrastructure sites in various Ukrainian cities, including Kyiv, as Ukraine reports progress in its counteroffensive against Russian troops. Ukraine's commander of land forces and deputy defense minister have both reported on their success in repelling Russian attacks in multiple directions. Russia's defense ministry claims to have destroyed 8 ammunition warehouses across Ukraine and repelled Ukrainian attacks in 3 different directions. While Ukraine claims to have recaptured 113 square kilometers of land from Russian forces, these latest attacks indicate that Russia is still capable of waging war beyond the southern and eastern front lines. Title: Nestlé to discontinue production of iconic sweet fantails. Nestlé Australia has announced it will stop production of fantails, the iconic yellow-wrapped sweet that has been a favourite for generations. Declining sales and aging machinery are cited as the reasons for the decision, leaving many fans of the caramel sweet and its movie and music trivia wrapped inside devastated. Shop owners, such as Vicky Parry of the Tallarook General Store, are left wondering what to put in the lolly jar now. Despite the sense of nostalgia fantails evoke, investment in its future was deemed unsustainable. The final batch of fantails will be made in mid-July. Title: Palestinian gunmen kill 4 Israelis in response to deadly army raid. Palestinian gunmen have killed 4 Israelis in an attack near a settlement in the occupied West Bank, according to Israeli officials. The attack came a day after an Israeli army raid in Jenin led to the deaths of 6 Palestinians. The militant Hamas group has claimed responsibility for the attack, saying it was in response to the Jenin raid. The Israeli military is reportedly boosting its forces in the West Bank in response. The attack is the latest in a sharp increase in violence in the West Bank, with Palestinian street attacks and Israeli army raids on the rise. Work to remove 18-ton Big Beauty from Queensland beach underway after second stranding in a week. Authorities are working to remove a dead humpback whale from Inskip Point, about 3 hours north of Brisbane. The carcass was discovered by members of the public on Monday, and transporting it from the beach will be difficult because of its size and the steep sand dunes surrounding the area. One option is to tow the animal out to sea and secure it in mangroves in the sandy strait. The stranding comes less than a week after a humpback whale was found off River Heads, south of Hervey Bay. Expert Olaf Meinecker believes the increase in whale numbers means more strandings will occur in future. Title: **** Renowned Titanic expert and 4 others missing in submersible in Atlantic. A renowned Titanic expert, a world record-holding adventurer, 2 members of one of Pakistan's wealthiest families and the CEO of the company leading an expedition to the world's most famous shipwreck are facing critical danger aboard a small submersible that has gone missing in the Atlantic Ocean. The submersible Titan, carrying a pilot and 4 other people, was reported overdue on Sunday night, sparking an international rescue operation. The expedition was led by OceanGate, which started bringing tourists to the Titanic as part of its effort to chronicle the slow deterioration of the wreck. Rescuers are racing against time, with the oxygen supply running low.